Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and in this extended forecast update we're going to be taking a look at thunderstorms extending across South Australia and into New South Wales, which will turn into a thunderstorm event for southeast Queensland before a possible east coast low fires up sometime later next week. And then we're going to go up north and take a look at a developing tropical low and possibly a further developing tropical low on the Gulf of Carpentaria, which will bring heavy rainfall to far northern Queensland and at the very least spark another rainfall round in the tropics of Australia. If you are brand new to the channel, and please do consider subscribing and also leave a like on the video while you're at it. Thank you very much, and happy Easter to everyone watching as well. So now taking a look at the current satellite imagery across central Australia, you can see a nice band of thunderstorms fired up over central South Australia last night between Cooperpedy and Moomba over the top of Lake Eyre, actually a very remote corner of Australia, and it did dump a pretty significant amount of rainfall here and there. I would say that the wettest locations probably picked up close to 100 millimeters overnight from slow-moving and very big thunderstorms that blew up. There wasn't too much on radar imagery that I saw last night, considering the fact that the thunderstorms were actually very remote, but on the edges of the radar you can notice that there were some heavy showers moving through past Roxby Downs there's a radar somewhere in central South Australia, not the Ceduna one, but I believe it's somewhere around Roxby Downs. Actually, it might be the Roxby Downs radar, but you can see that there were some lightning strikes represented by those ziggy marks, which would indicate thunderstorms moving through central South Australia, and they would have dumped a pretty significant amount of rainfall over some spots, which will certainly contribute to Lake Eyre's fill. Now, over the course of today, these thunderstorms will move into New South Wales and probably strengthen and intensify a little bit later tonight, but they should ease off later this evening at around 8 p.m. local time, and that will probably just ease them off for good before maybe another very quick round tomorrow afternoon, but that looks like it's going to be New South Wales and Queensland based. They're probably done for South Australia at this time, but especially along the New South Wales and South Australia border, there might be one or two spots that fire up around Broken Hill and up towards Tibooburra as well. But it's going to be the thunderstorms in Victoria associated with a strong cold front that's going to be moving through. Now, watch this low pressure system quite closely. Not only does it bring a lot of rainfall to Tasmania, possibly up towards 25 or 30 millimetres for a lot of locations, and maybe towards 100 millimetres around Strawn on the west coast throughout Monday and Tuesday. Certainly going to be a big front, that's for sure, to finish off Easter into the rest of the Easter long weekend. But watch further up north in New South Wales. Not only does this front bring some rainfall to parched areas of New South Wales in the form of thunderstorms through Monday and then into Tuesday morning, but we kind of see a separate low pressure area start to develop across Moree, north of Lightning Ridge into Queensland. Now, this is going to be very interesting because this plays big into next week's weather, especially from Thursday onwards. We're going to see a line of thunderstorms really start to develop, probably Wednesday evening. They're not going to be too crazy, but it will be Thursday evening where we start to see the really strong thunderstorms. And I believe that there's a very good chance between Charleville, Roma, and then down towards Lismore in northern New South Wales, we're going to see some strong thunderstorms fire up Thursday evening, possibly severe as well. Before, get this, we see a low pressure area really start to develop across northeastern New South Wales and southeastern Queensland. It's going to drive a lot of moisture ashore for locations basically along the New South Wales coastline, including Sydney, which means from Thursday onwards and then into Friday, we're going to be seeing consistent, very heavy rainfall creep up the New South Wales coastline, and that's going to probably peak out around Friday as a big low pressure area develops, and that will drag down a lot of thunderstorms along the Queensland coastline through Brisbane, Gympie, the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast. That will extend down across the Tasman Sea, probably not impacting land areas exclusive of Lord Howe Island, before we see this classic East Coast low start to develop just offshore from Bega, by the looks of things, from Jarvis Bay in New South Wales. Now, this doesn't look overly strong to me as an East Coast low, and it really doesn't stick around for too long, so I doubt that it'll actually be classifiable as an East Coast low, but it will be a strong low pressure system just offshore from New South Wales. It'll drive a lot of rainfall ashore. We're probably talking in excess of 150 or 200 millimetres for some locations, and it will be very widespread along all of the New South Wales coastline. The wetter spots will probably be across the southeastern part of the New South Wales coastline between Mallacoota up towards Wollongong. Sydney will cop a bit of rainfall as well, and then another very wet spot will be north of Coffs Harbour, right up the northeastern New South Wales coastline, extending probably up towards the Sunshine Coast as well, but that will be more thunderstorm based rainfall, and it will peak in intensity probably around Friday evening throughout Saturday as it moves kilometres away from Sydney. Now, wave heights aren't going to be extreme. They're going to be big, but nothing absolutely absurd, probably up towards 4 or 5 metres. So I do still believe we'll see those dangerous surf warnings be put into place, but it's nothing crazy here in the sense that I'm expecting world-ending beach erosion to occur across New South Wales. But still, though, there could be a little bit of damage, coastal damage, as a result of this big low-pressure system that's going to move through. And yeah, dangerous surf conditions can be expected from Friday morning right into probably maybe Monday. I would say Monday morning is probably when it's going to start to ease off. So next weekend there's going to be some big surf across all of the central New South Wales coastline, and that'll extend down towards the Victorian coastline and also the Tasmanian coastline as well. And this should definitely kick off the winter pattern that we're going to be seeing here. Big cold front, 2 of them, that will be moving through Tasmania and Victoria. A lot of rainfall can be expected, possibly some snow, damaging winds, of course. This is going to be a big weather system next week, and once again, just expect a whole lot of rainfall. Now, this is the EasternWeather's forecast. The EasternWeather is generally fairly reliable, and it's a model that I do really like to use. Quite a lot. The Axis G3 has a pretty similar scenario playing out in terms of low pressure area, rainfall and so forth. It just has it a lot further off the coastline, so the impacts will be very different in terms of rainfall. Damaging surf can still be expected if the Axis model's scenario plays out, but there'll be a lot less rainfall for New South Wales. There'll be no rainfall from this system for Tasmania and Victoria. So that just goes to show that there are still some details in the forecast that need to be ironed out, and a lot is dependent on where this sort of low pressure area forms in Queensland and northern New South Wales by around next Wednesday and Thursday. So we'll need to watch the weather very closely on Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, and that will dictate what's going to be happening next weekend. But at this stage, I do reckon that we're going to see something in terms of a strong low pressure area develop in the Tasman Sea. We just don't know exactly where and how close it will be to the Queensland coastline and the New South Wales coastline. The GFS also now very well and truly on board with something developing. They don't have it getting as strong, and as such, there's still hardly any rainfall for New South Wales. So again, this is a pretty good forecast for people that don't want to be inundated with 200 millimeters of rain and 5 meter surf. But again, I just really don't see this forecast playing out because the Axis and EasternWeather are just very keen on these strong low pressure areas really developing up quite nicely. And I mean, dare I say, it looks like at the end of next week, at the start of next week rather, we start to see something developing again next Tuesday, the 9th of April. By the looks of things, we see another sort of East Coast low start to develop there. That probably won't happen. I think that's just the model spinning up something for the sake of spinning up something. But I mean, with the passage of these 2 cold fronts, you can see that we're now seeing cold fronts dragged up from Antarctica quite frequently. That's the 3rd one in as many days by the looks of things for Tasmania next Tuesday, the 9th of April. So it definitely looks like winter is really starting to get a little go-ahead now, especially in southern Australia. And just look at the snow forecast now. There's quite a lot of snow extending across Victoria and into New South Wales. I think this is a worst-case scenario for snow. I do think that there'll be much less snowfall than what's actually forecasted right now, especially on the EasternWeather's part. But it just goes to show that there's things on the forecast, and that changeover weather is definitely starting to happen now. I do believe the Axis is maybe a more reliable model right now to go for snow. It's best to be more conservative than aggressive in a case like this, because 10 centimetres of snow is still quite a lot for very early April, especially for the first front of the season. I don't think that's going to happen, but again, we'll just have to wait and see. We'll see what happens with this system through Wednesday and Thursday. And it is actually very rare that you see a significant accumulation of snow in Australia before you see a significant accumulation of snow in New Zealand, considering the mountains in New Zealand are about twice as high as what they are in Australia, and it is significantly further south. So I do think that the Eastern BF might be on a little bit of something here. I don't think this is necessarily accurate, but again, we'll just have to wait and see. Now, you might be able to notice these 2 low pressure areas up in the northern parts of Australia as well. This leads very nicely onto the second part of the video, where we're going to be tracking 2 potential tropical lows up here. One of them's pretty certain at this time. We're definitely going to be seeing something form in the West Australian waters, especially considering the models have been on board with it for the past week or so now. The Gulf of Carpentaria system's a bit more of a different story. I'm not 100% sold on that right now, nor is the Bureau of Meteorology, so I don't think that it's worth really tracking at this time, but we'll wait and see, of course. course, but you can already see the monsoon really starting to get active again across northern Australia. A lot of thunderstorms firing up in the Gulf and also across PNG, across Port Moresby and through to the Solomon Sea as well. It really does look like something might try and form here in this sort of tropical wave that's going to be moving towards the west, and we're likely going to see something form south of Bali or Denpasar through here in the West Australian waters, probably in about a week's time or so. And now if we play this model run throughout the next a couple of days, you don't see anything crazy in terms of rainfall accumulation throughout the northern parts of Australia. There are some thunderstorms that fire up across Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then into Thursday, but it's nothing crazy in terms of massive rainfall accumulations. And again, for far northern Queensland, which I'll touch on in just a few minutes, that again, nothing absurd in rainfall accumulation until probably about next weekend, when we start to see some really serious rainfall fire up across northern Australia, throughout the Northern Territory, and then into Western Australia as well. Now, this tropical low that does fire up is going to have some pretty nasty conditions to contend with. It's going to be in an environment of high wind shear, very low mid-level humidities, so it's going to really struggle to fire up some convection and keep the convection around its center. So it's likely not going to be able to rapidly intensify or be very strong at all by the looks of things, but I still reckon that it has a fighting chance of becoming a tropical low and dancing around the West Australian coastline. Now, this time of the year, there's still that chance that if it gets itself in a nice pocket of conditions with low wind shear and very high level, mid-level humidities, it will be able to rapidly intensify and become a Category 4 or 5 strength cyclone. We saw it last year with Cyclone Ilsa. We've seen it years before with Marcus and some of the other strongest names in Australian cyclone history. We've seen some really strong storms fire up across Western Australian waters, but I just don't think it's going to happen in this year. If we do take a look at mid-level humidity values where this tropical cyclone is going to be forming, mid-level humidity is at about 2,000 or 3,000 metre elevations, about 9,000 feet or so up into the atmosphere. Typically, you want to see values approaching that 100%, and we do see that here, but it's this big tail of reds and oranges that you can see wrapping around the centre of this system that makes this quite an ugly forecast for this tropical cyclone. Now, I'm really getting into the nitty-gritty of how tropical cyclones work here, but when you want to see something have the opportunity to rapidly intensify, you want to see the low pressure area surrounded by these deep blues and into the dark blues, the navy blues, not a splotch of deep blues and navy blues surrounded by reds and blacks, which indicate very dry air. And in this case, we do have that splotch of deep blue surrounded by the dry air, which means it will likely be inhibiting intensification because it will have to be contending with dry air, which does not allow for thunderstorm activity to really fire up. I hope I made that simple enough. But in short, this is going to have a pretty hostile environment to contend with, especially with the mid-level humidities. And taking a look at the wind shear values as well, it doesn't look too horrible for the tropical cyclone, but keep in mind, any colour here is generally pretty bad across the low pressure area. You want to be seeing values probably at around the maybe 5 or 10 kilometre an hour marks to be absolutely perfect. And right now you're seeing values about 3 times that size. So this is not going to be a very good environment for this tropical cyclone to be able to rapidly intensify. And as such, that's why we've got such a weak tropical cyclone on the forecast. Things can change, but I don't see them changing so much so as we see a Category 2 or 3 strength system on the cards. If this does become a cyclone at all, it'll likely remain a Category 1 for just 24 hours before completely petering out. I know we said that with the last system, but that was basically cautionary because we had such a good environment, but it was a small system and we didn't know what exactly was going to be going on. In this case, I can say with a high degree of certainty that we're not going to be seeing a strong system if we see a system at all. But again, things can change and I'll be keeping you posted if things do change. That was a lot to cover on that tropical low up there that hasn't even formed yet. So now let's give the Gulf of Carpentaria and Arnhem Land a little bit of love through here. See if we change it over to the rainfall forecast that we do see something trying to wrap itself up here. The Eastern Blue is not keen on this system at all. It's the GFS model that really likes the chances of this system. But again, it has completely dropped it from yesterday's run. The Access model is also pretty keen on this system, calling for it to become a tropical Category 1 maybe by the looks of things here. And if we do take a look at wind speeds, it'll probably be getting close to Category 1 status at this point. But yeah, the GFS and the Access G3 model do like this system more so than the Eastern Blue model. So again, we'll just have to wait and see with this system. I don't think it's going to form. I think this might just be an Easter egg on the models at this point. And again, still 10 days out. The models are really pushing this back day on day, which tells me that they've got no idea on what is actually going to be happening in regards to this system, which makes sense because it is still a long way out and it's very difficult to give an accurate forecast on a system that's about a week and a half in advance. But regardless of if this system forms, the fact that the monsoon will be very strong brings these wind speeds up in the Coral Sea. These southeasterly winds, they bring them up really nicely, and that's what creates this onshore flow where we see some very heavy rainfall move ashore throughout northeastern Queensland or far northeastern Queensland, and we're likely going to be seeing quite a lot of rainfall move ashore from about Friday onwards for locations extending between Cooktown down towards Mackay. So coastal areas are likely going to be receiving 25 to 50 millimetres a day for probably about a week straight by the looks of things, especially between Cairns down towards Mackay. That looks to be the wet zone at this point. But yeah, from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and maybe even into next Monday and Tuesday, we'll likely be seeing a very high amount of rainfall move through for areas, especially around Townsville, although it doesn't look like Townsville's going to be receiving too much in terms of rainfall. But I mean, locations such as Lucinda or Innisfail could see up towards 250 millimetres. Cairns itself only expecting about 50 millimetres, but that can change big time, and then down towards Mackay as well with 4 days of 25 millimetres. You're pushing up towards 100 millimetres through here. So next week there's still that chance, that onshore flow, which will bring some showery conditions, possibly some very heavy showers as well, and we could be seeing 1 or 2 days where we see more than 50 millimetres fall in the gauge for some of these locations. So it doesn't look like wet season 2024 is over just yet, but it certainly is winding down. This is low rainfall accumulations compared to what we would have been seeing about a month ago. So yeah, certainly things have started to die down at this point, but they're not completely done yet. So don't sleep on the tropics until maybe about 2 or 3 weeks time. But it definitely looks like once this system is done, then the wet season is going to certainly wrap itself up, and we'll likely be seeing a lot less rainfall fall across far northern Australia into the Northern Territory and Queensland. And it's certainly looking like it's going to be the southern Australia's, that region, Victoria, Tasmania and New South Wales. It's going to be their turn for heavy rainfall, which is just fantastic because winter season, it's definitely a great season. The cold isn't nice, but the rainfall is very nice, and we sorely miss the rainfall through Western Australia. And also I bet Victoria and New South Wales also miss a couple of those winter fronts. I've seen people asking why there's been no East Coast lows this summer season, so I do imagine there's a few people waiting out for some significant rainfall in New South Wales and Victoria, and it looks like that might be coming in the next week or so. Things can change, of course, but right now it looks like there's going to be quite a bit of rainfall just offshore, up towards 200 or 250 millimetres, and that might be hiked even more as the days go on. But either way, I mean, especially Melbourne expecting a lot of rainfall to fall from these cold fronts over the next 10 days, probably up towards 100 millimetres there, and Tasmania well and truly in the thick of things as well. And it's going to be some cold nights too. We should just take a look at temperature forecasts as well. But in the morning, I mean, we're seeing some very chilly nights next weekend. In Tasmania, approaching that sort of 0 degrees, which I mean is pretty normal for this time of the year, but the fact that it's going to be sort of that close to 0 or sub-zero, and then during the day not even warming up at all or refusing to warm up above sort of 5 degrees, it's going to be quite cool, that's for sure, especially compared to the 20 or 25 degree days that we were seeing just a few weeks ago. And I believe Hobart rather had a 30 degree night not so long ago, or a 23 degrees Celsius night not so long ago. So very, very warm conditions have just left Tasmania, and they've been thrown right into the cold, that's for sure. So you got about a week to prepare for what looks like permanent cold that's going to start to set in across Tasmania and Victoria. But as I've said multiple times before, we will wait and see with what happens with these low pressure systems, because if it just does go into the Tasman Sea and heads towards New Zealand, it will likely not bring significant impacts to the Australian mainland. So yeah, we will wait and see. Anyways, thank you so much to the channel sponsors for supporting this video. Your support really does mean a lot. Subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a like on the video as well. Thank you so much for watching this video. Happy Easter to everyone that's watching. Hope you have a great day and a great Sunday as well, and enjoy the Easter long weekend. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.